let's extend a welcome to our friend and guest speaker, the Reverend Stephen McAfee. And
there's a lot of people here. When I sat down, it's always interesting being in the front row because I get here a little early, for the pray-in and setup and all that. And by the time I sit down, there's almost nobody back there. So when I stand up, it's always a surprise. I expected with the rows, we'd probably have fewer people this morning. But welcome here. Thanks for coming. So my talk title today is What Did He Say? And I was thinking about some interesting things. Like, I guess today's Super Bowl Sunday, is that right? I am like the least sports guy you'll ever... I'm barely a guy because I like, I know nothing about sports. And Ani's family is a big sports family. So like there's every TV in the house has sports on it all the time. And it's what they talk about all the time. And it just to me sounds like, and so has a batting average, and he has this many interceptions. It's like, okay, fine. So, not my thing. But this is Super Bowl Sunday, and for those people who are fans, this is a big day. So they're having parties, they're looking forward to their team winning, they're talking about it, and all of that stuff that's really important in their world that they talk about all the time is not important in mine at all. And that made me realize things that I talk about all the time that are really important to me in my life, for some people, never even cross their consciousness. Doesn't matter to them. And so I was thinking about this a few days ago, and I thought, so if you can kind of tell what matters to me by what I talk about all the time, and if you can tell what matters to other people by what they talk about all the time, what mattered to Jesus? What did he talk about all the time? I thought that'd be interesting. So that's what I'm going to talk about this morning, is what he talked about. And the title I came up with was, What Did He Say? And then I got to thinking, we've become this, our current culture, I think it's fair to say that the majority of people communicate more in texts and emails and electronic digital means than face-to-face actually looking at somebody and talking to them. And there's a thing that troubles me about that, because, so the title, What Did He Say? That could be, what did he say? Like you didn't hear it. It could be, what did he say? Different meaning, right? It could be, what did he say? What did he say? There's lots of different, it's the same words. And if you're just reading them, all that's lost. You follow me? You don't see my face, you don't see my voice inflection, you don't have any of that. So there's a communication piece, a really significant piece that's missing when we do that. So unfortunately, we are not able to actually invite Yeshua to come here and give a talk up here and hear what he has to say and look at his face and hear his inflections. We can't do that. So what we're kind of stuck with is the record of what he said and did. So this was kind of interesting to me. I actually found a program and some things that you could analyze how many words are in a text. So I took a look at the New Testament to see how many words Jesus said most. What words did Jesus say most through the entire New Testament? Guess which was number one? Wrong. That's what I guessed too. God. Or a name for God like Abba or Father or God. That was the first, that's what he talks about the most in the entire New Testament. The second thing, the second word, and then this is from Greek because it's written in Greek, so we really don't know, but he didn't He didn't say all this in Greek, but anyway, it's written in Greek. So the second most prevalent word that he uses is man, or mankind, or human being. Because what we translate as man is actually Hebrew 2 words, Ben Adam. And it does mean man. Like if you were saying Bob is a man, you'd have to say Ben Adam. That means a man. But if you were saying Anisa is a human being, you'd also say Ben Adam. Or if you talked about humanity, you'd also say Ben Adam, or actually Bani Adam. But it's the same word, so we have to translate it that way. So God and man are the two things he talked about most. What do we talk about most here? I don't mean mailman. Mailman? I don't mean the mailman or a male. I mean mankind. Right. Humans, yes. So that's what he talked about the most. That's what we talk about the most. What he talked about most after that was the word that means son. Not in terms of a male child, but in terms of the Son of God, the Son of Man, the child of the divine. That was what he meant by son. So he talks about that a lot. Michael, whom some of you know well and some of you have heard speak before, one of Michael's things that I think about often is he says that, if God is our Father and we are those children, then what are we? Because lions don't give birth to dogs and cats don't give birth to mice. If God gave birth to us and created us, then guess what we are? We're God's. We can't be anything else. It's the same seed. I can plant a corn kernel in my yard and hope that an oak comes up, but you know what comes up every time? Corn. The birds can take the corn where I don't want it, and I have corn growing up there. I don't have maple trees or burning bushes, I have corn. Whatever seed is planted is what grows. Nothing else can. We have the divine seed in us. That's what we are. But in the fertile garden of our mind, we can plant whatever other seeds we want, and that is what will grow up. So what you take in and nourish is what you will get. So if we don't like what we're getting, we need to go back a step further and see what we've been planting. Don't we? Yeah. The last thing that Yeshua talked about in the New Testament the most, the word he used the most, was kingdom. He talked about kingdom a lot. And we can argue about what he meant by that or try to understand what he meant by that. But basically, if you look at this, he talks about God the Father, the Son, mankind, and the kingdom. That's what the entire New Testament, as far as what he taught, is focusing on. And so I thought about, if you looked at me in my daily life, and what I say, and what I think about, and what I read about, and what I take in and plant, is it mostly God and the Son and the kingdom and mankind? Is that mostly what it is? Or is it mostly me, I, me, and me? It's really easy in this human form. There's nothing wrong with thinking about ourselves. I don't mean that. But it's really easy in this human form that we have to get fixated on something. Have you noticed that? Whatever it is, good or bad, it's easy to get fixated on it. So I have a vehicle, a second vehicle that we rarely use. It's an old, beat-up, Toyota Sienna that we haul stuff around in. I'm really grateful we have it. It still runs almost 300,000 miles on it. And it has a tire that has a slow leak in it. And so the other day I was going to go pick up something with it, and the tire was almost flat. So I had to get my little compressor out and try to, So what I thought about most of the day and most of the time I was running errands was not the new car that works just fine that I have. Not the fact that the van still runs with 300,000 miles on it. Not the fact that I have two cars that I can do stuff with, not that I can afford to put gas in or afford to buy what I'm running to go get at the errands. I thought about the dang tire. You know what I'm saying? Just telling you the truth. Fixated on that. Have you met or do you know people that get fixated on something right now, like the political climate or some other issue that's going on right now that's really big in the world? And when you talk to them, that's all they ever talk about. I don't mean they talk about it when you're having that conversation or topic. It's all they talk about. Do you know anybody like that? If you are one of those people, think about expanding a little bit. Just a hint. Yeah, and think about tires for a while. Right? Right. Just be mad at the tire. Let everybody else alone for a little bit. So then I thought that was interesting. So I looked up verbs, the verbs that he used most in the New Testament. The verb he used the most by far in the New Testament is be, as in to be. Be kind, be forgiving, be loving, be like your Father in heaven. Be. The second most common verb he used was do. And I think it's interesting that it's in that order, because if you look at most of us, what we fixate on is doing. Doing. When we meet somebody, you know what we say to them after they introduce themselves by giving us their name? What do you do? Yeah. So we're really focused on doing. In Hebrew, Michael will know this, but the rest of us probably won't because it's not something most of us study. They have a word in Hebrew that means this whole physical creation. The word is asiyah. You know what it means? Doing. They also have a word for the spiritual kingdom of heaven. And you know what that means? Being. Yeah. So if you're having stress a lot and not in that relaxed, expansive, spiritual, loving space you want to be in, maybe you could think about doing less, not more, and being more. Think about times in your life that have been really important to you. Maybe really dangerous times where you're dying, or someone you care about is dying, or has just died. Maybe beautiful times like the firstborn grandchild, or the firstborn child, or a brand new song you've created, or a brand new something that you've done. It's wonderful. In these moments of great sorrow and great joy, do you not wish you had someone to share those with? Don't you seek out people to share those with? And when you do, is what they say what matters to you, or is the fact that they're present what matters to you? So you go to a funeral, somebody's just lost their spouse, and they're devastated. What are you going to say to make that okay? What are you going to say to suddenly go, oh, don't worry about that, everything's fine? Not going to happen. What are you going to say that hasn't been said to them 100 times already, that they've heard 300 times just at the funeral? But if you're present with them, they notice. If you're not there, they notice that too. There was a story my grandmother used to tell me, and I don't really know, knowing my grandmother now better, whether it was a true story or whether it was one of her stories. But in any case, there was this person across the street from her that lost their husband, and they were, or wife, I guess it was, and was very, very sad, very distraught. And people tried to, for the next several weeks, people in the neighborhood and family members would try to distract them from the pain of that loss. They try to get them engaged in life. They try to get them to do something interesting. They take them out. They try to get their mind off of the loss. And it didn't really work very well. And it got to the point that this person, the widow, didn't really want to be with anybody because they kept trying to distract him. And as it turned out, what they really wanted was to talk about the spouse they had lost. And nobody would let them, because that would make them sad. So this little 5-year-old boy in the neighborhood rode over there on his bike and went up on the porch and spent about an hour with this guy. And he came back home, and his mother said, "How is Mr. So-and-so doing?" He said, "Oh, a lot better now." And he said, "Well, that's wonderful. What did you say to him?" And he said, "Nothing. I listened to him talk about his wife, and when he started crying, I hugged him." He was present. He was just being with him through what he was going through. There weren't magic words that fixed those things. So I think it's interesting that he uses being more than he uses doing. I think there's a clue in that for us. We had our youngest daughter and 3 grandsons who used to live a half a mile from us. Now they live in Mississippi for the last 8 years. Way too far away. She's, I told her I was writing her out of the will. But if we had anything, yeah. And then I realized that was pointless. So, yeah. But they got to come up for Christmas and have a really nice Christmas with us, which they haven't been able to do in years. And they came, and one of the boys' girlfriends came, who was really sweet. So we had a great time together. And it was great being together. None of the things we talked about and none of the activities that we did were what made me so happy. It was being with them. The third thing that he says most is have, as in having things. Having peace, having health, having abundance, having things. So now we have this sequence of things again. It's kind of invisible, but based on what he said the most, being first, doing second, having third. What you have is less important than what you do, and what you do is less important than who you are. So I think there's a teaching in that. Then the next thing he said most was come. It's an imperative verb form. For those of you who haven't taken English grammar for a while, it's a command form. It's telling you, come. What's he telling you to come to? To the kingdom. That's what he's inviting you to do. Come into the kingdom. And if you don't know how to get there, follow me, because I do know how to get there. Not a place that we travel to. A place that we open within us. That's why he said the kingdom of God is within you. That's why also he said, if people say, look, the kingdom is here, or the kingdom is there, or the kingdom is coming, don't believe them. It's already here, and people don't see it. So, the last one he said in terms of verbs, the least of these most 5, was the word say. So now I have the sequence: be first, do second, acquire third, come fourth, and last, talk about it. Last. We kind of flip the order. If you noticed, if you just stand it on its head, we talk a lot. We have less than we talk about. We do less than we know. And we focus very little on being present. And I think if we flip that back around in the sequence Jesus presented it, we'd be a lot more connected a lot more often. So the other thing I want to mention in looking over this was another word came up a lot, not as much as these, but it came up a lot. And I started looking, it gave me another idea, and I started looking through it. The word was hypocrisy, or hypocrites. Do you know who Jesus spoke against? Not the Romans, who were oppressing and inflicting horrible suffering on his people. Not the Romans. Not, people think he said this, but he didn't if you read it carefully, not the priesthood and the Pharisees. Not them. Not people who didn't believe in him. He He said, hey, if you're not against us, you're with us. It's okay. He wasn't fixated on convincing everybody to believe the way he did. What he spoke against were people who were hypocritical. And especially spiritual leaders who were hypocritical. What he said was that you not only will not enter the kingdom yourselves, you stand in the door and bar the way for others. That's a pretty strong statement. I had a talk a few months ago with Wanda. It was kind of an interesting thing about something she was telling me that she was learning about in some of her studies. And she described it as spiritual arrogance and how easy it is to get into that. And I've thought about it a lot since then. And arrogantly, I've decided I don't have any of that. But have you ever heard yourself saying these words? Oh, well, they're fundamentalists. Oh, they're part of the traditional church. Oh, well, they're not really spiritual. Spiritual arrogance. Do you know where they are in their heart? Do you know what their relationship with God is? Do you see everything that's unfolded in their life? Absolutely not. You have no business. I have no business. None of us have any business judging where somebody else is spiritually. We don't know. Lots of people judge Jesus. He was a seducer. He was a liar. He was a false prophet. He was a rebel. He was dangerous. And they were convinced they were right. And all of those things that they knew about him were wrong. So my last little story is many, many years ago. I might have told this here a long time ago, but many, many years ago, this made a big impression on me. Many years ago, because I was young back then. And several of my friends, a lot of us were involved in theater. We went up to Chicago to go to this play up there, which was really great. And we also saw Second City Comedy Club and all that. It was a lot of fun. So we're in Chicago, and we're coming back to the hotel, and it's late at night, and we get lost. There's maybe, I don't know, in that particular group, maybe there might have been 5 or 6 of us, and we're lost. And we end up in a part of Chicago that made me real nervous in South Central Chicago. That was a very high crime area. And it was late at night, and I was really nervous. And so as we're walking, there's this, what we used to call in those days winos. I don't know the correct term for that now. Disenfranchised, I don't know, oppressed, afflicted poor members of the society, whatever they are. But it was a drunk, leaning up against a wall, pretty much blasted, and really dirty, like you could smell him several feet before you got to him. And so I'm thinking, this is really bad. So I'm thinking we should be on the far side of the street, because I didn't want to be around that. And it was just one more sign that this neighborhood was really dangerous. And so as we're walking by, we're talking about, oh my God, I don't know how we're going to find the hotel. Maybe we should call a cab. But this was the days before cell phones. So first you had to find a payphone, then you had to have change. For those of you who are young enough that you don't ever live through those days, that was a challenge sometimes. So we're looking for this, and this guy, who seemed to be pretty out of it, stands up, starts walking over toward us. I'm thinking, oh my God. And he said, oh, you're looking for such and such a hotel? And I was like, yeah. He said, oh, I know where that is. It's about 10 blocks from here. And they're long blocks in Chicago. I'll show you how to get there. So we thought he was going to tell us how to get there. He said, no, come on, I'll walk you there. So he walked us to this hotel. Not in very much of a straight line, but he got us to the hotel. And we were really grateful. And so I said to him, I really appreciate that, thanks so much. And I got out my wallet. And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to pay you. And he said, I didn't do this for money. I did this to help you. And I thought, wow. Okay. So there's something there I wasn't seeing. Follow me? So what we say makes a difference, and what we say to each other makes a difference, and what we say to ourselves makes a difference. If you said to me, Stephen, I think you're really stupid, I wouldn't like hearing that. I'm not going to say, oh gee, I'm so happy you told me that, thanks, I feel better now. I wouldn't like hearing that. But if you say to me, you're really stupid, you're incompetent, I don't know why they ever let you speak here, they should never let you come back here again. That would not be a pleasant thing for me to hear. But I don't carry that with me until I walk out the door and I start saying that to me. I guess I'm really stupid. Probably nobody should listen to me. Probably they'll never have me back here again. I don't deserve to be there. When I say that to me, it takes root in me and it's planted very firmly. When you say it to me, it moves through. It only plants when I take hold of it. So what people think of you doesn't matter until it matters to you and you believe it's true. I had a guitar student long ago, a kid, who really was, let's say, not musically gifted, but really wanted to play. And I kept telling him how well he was doing, because given his skill level, he was improving. And because I thought he could do it, he finally thought he could do it. And you know what happened? He learned how to play. Is he ever going to be a virtuoso? No. But can he play? Does he enjoy playing? Yes, he does. And he was ready to give up because he was convinced he couldn't do it. Anybody in your life ever supported you when you didn't believe in yourself? Remember what that felt like? Yeah. One of the things that I think Yeshua did was come to people who were broken, who didn't believe they could be anything but broken, and say, I don't see you as broken. You don't have to be broken. You can be whole. And they began to believe that. And guess what? When they began to believe it, they began to be healed. And they began to change. And when I thought about all the things that he said and go back to being again, this is my impression. My impression that is, if we could bring him present right now, as he was then, and if you could sit with him, what you would feel sitting with him is love. You would feel loved in his presence. And what he said to you would be important because you felt loved in his presence. And if he said nothing to you and just sat with you for the whole service and watched me talk, you would feel loved sitting next to him if he said nothing to you. That's my take on it. I think that's true. For me, that's a true experience. So when I come here and I sit next to you while we're listening to Wanda or whoever else might be up here, do you feel that with me sitting next to you? Because if you don't, I'm not a very good representative of his. Because it isn't his teachings that he wanted to take into the world. It was love that he wanted to take into the world. And that's what we have an opportunity to do. And that's one of the reasons I particularly like this church is I think that matters here. I think people want that. I think they care about it. And I think even when we fail, because we have all these human little things we put on ourselves, well, I don't like that person very much. We don't give up. We keep making the effort. So let's just pause for a moment and bring our attention inside. The phrase that Jesus said the most in the New Testament was, they have ears but do not hear. He's actually paraphrasing the prophet Isaiah, who said, "These people have eyes but will not see, ears but will not hear, and will not understand with their hearts, and therefore they do not return and are not healed." So understanding with our hearts, being present, allowing love to live in us and then express through us. That's the gift. It doesn't matter how old, young, fat, skinny, smart, stupid, rich, poor, doesn't matter. That's the gift. We can be present in love for the people we meet. And we can be present in love for the people that we care about in our everyday lives. And if that seems like a small thing, remember what it felt like when you didn't know you were loved. And the difference once you do. It is a huge gift. And you can give it for free to anyone you want. And you can receive it for free from all those who are giving it. So Father, let us just take a moment of silence to feel your love in us right now. To feel the presence of that spirit of love alive in our own hearts. And stop being distracted from it, but start paying attention to it. May we live with that love at the center of our lives. And may the way we live help others to experience it for themselves. This is the blessing we ask for you today.